This is Willpower.
Hey, it's Kristen. And I'm putting this out like a little secret podcast. It's not a typical Willpower podcast episode, it's a solo-sode. And I wanted to speak to you specifically about mastering the art of health coaching and share 5 strategies for client success and things that I have learned over the last 10 plus years of coaching clients in various different health optimization arenas. And more specifically, really to speak to you a bit about how we breathe in and how we breathe out being so important. And the fact that not only breath, but the other parts of the strategies I'm going to share with you that are elemental and the lowest hanging fruit that you can weave into your coaching. You see, we breathe every single day when we wake up throughout our day autonomically, and we breathe in specific patterns and styles based on our stress. And there is plenty of evidence to suggest that it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg, right? We think that we have these thoughts or we have these stressors and then we begin to breathe rapidly. But what's actually happening is our nervous system is facilitating this like multi-second check-in all the time of the body and the experience and the surrounding and the level of safety we have. And as it's checking in all the time, it's actually taking in data faster than we could ever imagine. It is shifting the state of our breath. And all of that is beginning to shift our thoughts or create and craft these thoughts in the brain. And so, the nervous system and the science of it, if you've listened to some of my other podcasts, I just launched a podcast with Gil Headley, who's a gross anatomist, and we dive in deep on the vagus nerve and the vagal complex. But apart from that, we as coaches, as facilitators, as leaders in the health space, whatever you may be coaching, to ignore breath is to ignore the most fundamental aspect of our body's physiology, our thought processes and mindset, and the way that we shape, shift, and create our day, right? The way we navigate our world. So we're going to talk about that. And really this has all spawned, this podcast has spawned from lots of conversation I'm having recently around the Sherpa breath and cold landscape, right? This is the big business that I run around breathwork and cold exposure. It is working with coaches and nurses and doctors and facilitators of all kinds, working with professional athletes. I just brought on an incredible Olympian figure skater and leaning into the university set with university sports teams. So if you're coaching or working in a university landscape or you're an athlete yourself, the tools that I get to bring in with the team to these universities, I just time and time again going to speak with coaches and staff and athletic directors, time and time again, I am floored by the quite often lack of interest, if I'm going to speak plainly, in navigating or weaving in breathing practices. And in the spaces where the most pivotal, cutting edge, progressive coaches are saying, you know what, I see some change here. I see the landscape of breathing and stress inoculation coming into the forefront of sport because the very biggest teams and the most professional athletes have private coaches and coaches coming in and teams spending budget dollars on this. We really, really get to see, and I've gotten such a beautiful opportunity working with this coach Kim on the team for Sherpa Breath and Cold in the university landscape of how much breath can shift the capacity and the ability of the athlete in so many areas and just put W's on the board. And this isn't just about university athletics. This is about how we navigate our daily life performance. So Sherpa Breath and Cold has become this thing that is really all-encompassing. And even with the women I'm working with one-on-one in the health optimization landscape over the course of 6 to 12 months, I weave in breath twice during the course of the year to make sure they're on point with it. I weave in cold exposure, and all of these things are there. These tools are there. Because there are no 2 modalities like breathwork and cold exposure, and yeah, there's sauna in there. But there are no 2 modalities like breathwork and cold exposure that I have ever used in the landscape of health optimization that have created such pivotal transformation. Nothing compares to these 2 modalities woven in together to create an understanding of each of our clients' greatness that they can step into and to understand really how they can adhere to other challenging things in the health landscape. Maybe it's the way they eat, or their nutrition, or the practice, or the lifting they have to do, or the workouts, or the fitness, or the anger management, whatever it might be that you're coaching people on, how they can navigate the space between the stimulus and response, how they can breathe better, how they can lose weight faster. All of it is going to be tied back to breath very specifically, and also can be tied back to cold. And so it's powerful. And I think that's why I wanted to record and share this with you. These tools are powerful, and they are two of the tools that I'm going to talk about more specifically, how to use them in the 5 strategies for client success for all of you health coaches out there. And even those of you who are listening right now who are passion players in the arena, hey, I love fitness, I love breathwork, or I love cold exposure and ice baths all over Instagram, whatever it might be, that this is an opportunity for you. Because I want to say one other thing about, like, what I'm doing a lot in the work I'm doing is navigating nervous systems with people. I don't like the word regulating nervous systems, but navigating nervous systems with people, with clients, with athletes, with high performers, with people who are having sleep challenges, right? Disordered breathing, whatever it might be. We're navigating nervous system tone in the body. And so how do we utilize all of the tools that are in our arsenal, and whatever specific tools you bring a level of expertise in? So you may be listening to this and being a trauma therapist, or a psychotherapist, or a nurse, or a personal trainer, or someone who works as a life coach. All of these expertise, these pieces of your expertise that you bring into the arena that make you a standout, remarkable coach. And I'm here to tell you there are ways, these 5 strategies, that you can level yourself up even more than you are right now, that you can step into your greatness, that you can understand your capacity and really walk your own talk and layer in some of these strategies in order to continue to become the best of the best, right? We want to be the top 5% leaders in the world, because the greatest pandemic that exists right now, the absolute greatest pandemic in the world, epidemic, health issue in the world, I'm telling you, it's people navigating anxiety and depression, and people navigating loneliness. I've had a heck of a year personally, and I'm so blessed to professionally be surrounded by so many incredible instructors and champions of these practices and protocols, and to be able to apply them in my mentorship group into all the places and spaces that I get to play and work. And personally, life keeps lifing. And so this is the first year I had to navigate some anxiety, some depression, some things going on that I was not used to in my world. And how lucky have I been? Here's a silver lining. How lucky have I been as a human being on this planet? And if you're listening to this, like, I have a couple girlfriends, close friends in the health landscape that have talked to me. And when I said to them, it's really interesting, I never navigated like heightened states of anxiety until this year. And they were like, wait, what? I've been dealing with that my whole life. And the more that I shared a bit of my story, and the more that I'll share it at another time, but the more I shared a bit of the details of my story with people and friends and connections and colleagues to ask about, I'm using my tools. Kristen is using her tools, her breathwork, her cold, her meditation, her red light, all of the biohacks, and they're working. And also I'm still navigating some heightened states. So to speak to the people that I know, and to colleagues and friends and mentors and everyone in my circles, my closest family, to say, what are the tools that you have? What's coming up for you? Have you navigated anxiety or depression? Have you felt loneliness and heartbreak came up a lot, loss, grief, all of these things? And people were really very beautifully vulnerable once I was open and vulnerable about things that were coming up for me, talking about, in many ways, it gave me so much compassion for the clients I've been working with navigating these things. And in many other ways, my vulnerability was able to share that. Other people were able to share in return things that they had gone through. And we all feel less alone that way. We all feel less alone that way. And it's a profound shift in understanding that we are all connected, and there's only one thing, and we are all it, right? And we're coaches out in the world. And this is why it's so important that these things show up, whether we like it or not. These things show up in our life. So important to remember they're happening for us. They're happening so we can be better leaders. All right. So I'm going to cut to the chase, really. I'm a lot on my soapbox today. I wanted to share some of these things that are coming up, but also the strategies that you can use for client success. And this notion that the epidemic, the challenge, the health crisis that exists, forgetting and including, obesity and all of that. But the biggest one is really, I want to advocate for mental well-being, right? I want to be a mental health advocate even more than I have been with this work with Sherpa Breath and Cold, with your work and how we connect with our clients, how we actively listen to where they are, because it's not just about the physical body, right? It's about this holistic approach, including the mental, emotional body. So let's start at the very beginning, right? Let's just talk about these 5 strategies that I think are wildly important, that I think are simple strategies to implement and weave into your coaching business as a health coach, and just make game-changing difference and a point of differentiation between you and so many other coaches out there, right? Everybody's doing the best they can with the education that they have, and you are a remarkable coach. So how do you take it up even one more notch, right? And if you're newer to the coaching world, these small shifts that you can make will absolutely set you leaps and bounds apart of anyone who's coming in at your same level, right? So let's talk about the number one thing. The number one thing, and it's no particular order really, but these are like 5 simple things you can shift with the work you're doing with clients in the health space to be able to drastically either stand out from the pack and be far ahead of the pack, or drastically support your client success. So really the first one is about going the extra mile. It is about customer service. And that's where term sounds so like, oh, I just went shopping at Macy's, customer service. But the reality is people won't remember what you told them. People will remember how you made them feel, right? So how do you make your clients feel? And I'm calling this number 1, set the setting. So set the setting up for success. Where are you meeting them? How do you set up your space? What is your mindset when they show up at the door? We talk a lot in Sherpa Breath and Cold instructor training about this. From the parking lot in. And from the parking lot in means to me, like when I get out of my car, if I'm going to a space to work, when I leave my car, I get off my phone or I do whatever I'm doing, I leave my shit in the car. Because you never know who's watching in the parking lot, but also you need to be like as clear as you can be and leave your personal stuff outside the space and be highly focused on walking in to work with that client and being attentive to that client and holding space for that client without your stuff getting in the way. So how have you cleared yourself from the parking lot in? And that might be if you're working in a space where someone's actually showing up to your door, a brick and mortar facility, or working out of a home studio or any other clinic type environment. Someone's going to walk from the parking lot and come in. And how do you either watch them through the window? I used to have windows in my door of my house when I worked in a home studio in Austin, and I would watch people walk down the driveway through these small windows, not to be a creeper, but to really watch their nervous system tone as they're arriving. Are they yelling at their partner on the phone or their kids? Are they looking sad? Are they looking happy? Because the minute I open the door and welcome them with a big smile on my face, people will then shift their constructs, shift like, hey, I'm going to socialize myself and be like, hi, and maybe put a little wall up or just try to, act in a social way. So I want to see how they're really feeling, right? And so set the setting. How do you set up your space from the parking lot in, or your own person from the parking lot in? And then what are you doing in the physical space for the client, right? I always had a hot water on and a kettle and would say, hey, would you like, I'd make you a tea. And I'd had all these different flavors of teas in my home so that people could feel like they could settle in with a cup of tea if they want, a glass of water, sparkling water can, whatever it is. Something simple and inexpensive in a way that feels like you're greeting them. Maybe they have a water bottle. They're already showing up to the gym for you. And you're like, you have some element tea on you, or you have some electrolytes, or you have, you make sure their water bottle is filled with cold water in the gym space from the water spigot, whatever it might be, just like making sure that they're set up for success. And in the space, the physical space for the clients, it feels safe. It feels like you're using what I might call the 5 sense formula. What do they see? What do they smell? What sounds are around? What might they taste? What are they feeling or touching, etc.? So if you're lying them on a yoga mat or block, if you're putting them on a massage table, is it clean? Is it wiped down? Are there scents in the air that you can control to make the space feel safe? And I was just reading a study, and I don't have it in front of me, but I was just reading a study about aromatherapy, right? A really passive study, like did it in a retirement home where they put aromatherapy in specific rooms. And I thought it was going to be some complex formula of aromatherapy. And the formulas it was like lavender and lemon. And it was very straightforward formulas or straightforward scents that they used from these like lovely aromatherapy smells. And they just blew aromatherapy in these people's rooms who lived on their own in retirement community or old folks home, perhaps, that the scents were in their room. So they plugged in the aromatherapy device, and while they were sleeping, they had the aromatherapy, and they had all of these sort of positive outcomes of people feeling better, being more social, feeling more light, and just by changing the scent in the room. So do you have the capacity to do that? I mean, perhaps you're teaching in the corner back room or space of a sweaty gym that's always kind of loud and sweaty, but like, how can you put up, one of those folding walls or something so that it feels a little bit more private? Or how do you have really good yoga blocks or mats that are clean, or your table is wiped down and smells great, or there's a little bit of, perhaps you have music that you can play that feels really nice for people. So how do you set the setting, and how do you make people feel like they've walked into a beautiful space to work with you, and all eyes are on them, and you're focused on them, and you're caring, and, remembering mirror neurons are the thing that when someone walks in your door, someone comes to work with you, and you give them a smile, and you don't make them feel rushed, and you let them take their time best you can. You got to keep a clock, but also that they feel seen, that they feel heard, that you've tapped into their nervous system. This is co-regulation at its finest. How are they breathing? Are they rushed? Are they hectic? Are they stressed? All of those things are going to change from time to time, visit to visit. And then how can you apply what's going on in their bodies to be able to center them and really get them focused on the work going forward? And that requires you to co-regulate. Right. And so we'll talk about the co-regulation a bit when in the breath work, when we get to number 3. But number 2, so number 1, set the setting. How do you set up the space? Number 2, intake. Now, listen, I understand that in some cases you might be seeing a client for a one-off visit and that you don't have time necessarily, except where it's necessary, of course, perhaps it's a medical intake, but you don't have a lot of time to do a massive intake. My intake form for my clients for 6 to 12 months is 70 questions. Takes them quite some time. I review it, then we review it together, and on and on. But that is, again, 6 to 12 months of working with someone. If you have an intake on a one-off client, it's probably a verbal intake. You're going to cover 5 to 10 key questions. It's going to be a little bit of a checking in on injuries, medical, anything that's coming up, mental, emotional. You'll have those questions there. And I have a download that is at sherpabreathandcold.com/playbook that you can get. You just go do the download and then you click a link and you'll get my 74 question intake form, of which you can parse questions off for shorter intake forms or whatever you want. But have an intake form. This is imperative. We need to understand how old they are. Are they in their reproductive years? They have their periods still if they're females, what age they might be, what's their basic eating, what's their basic physical fitness, the capacity, just things that you might not witness in them in person. Just getting a little sense of them. Could you make that intake form something online and easy to do prior? Or, and if you're seeing someone for like a 4-week program or, multiple times, or they're new to your facility, but you don't know how many times they're going to come back, how can you make that intake form palatable, but deep enough that you are getting into it with them and then actually reviewing it with them? And many times I'm not reviewing 74 questions. Some of the questions are perfectly answered and I understand what they say. But on my intake form, no matter how long it is, because I have a shorter version of that intake for an 8-week program, I will work with amateur athletes trying to do their first triathlon, or somebody who comes to me with sleep apnea, and someone who wants to lose weight or something like that, right? In a shorter, cold exposure coaching or understanding how to use breath and cold in their own lives if they're general population, I'm going to have a shorter intake form. But it's going to give me some clear insights on who that person is in front of me. We talk a lot about, in the Sherpa Breath and Cold program, context is king and safety is queen. So you have to align the work you're doing with clients with their goals, right? Ever so important. So intake form, what's it look like? Again, sherpabreathandcold.com/playbook. It is a 9-page download that has links to my intake, that has breathwork audio downloads that you can learn by listening to them yourself and then replicate for your clients. There's so much. There's golden nuggets all in this book. It's like a free download that I have. So shout out for the plug, but that's where it's at. So intake form. Perhaps on the intake, you're sitting with them and you're going over. So like if you have all these questions and most things are answered, maybe there's one that's a standout. Like they're like, my sleep is on a scale of 1 to 10. How is your sleep? 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And they're like 1. So maybe you want to spend 2 minutes to just say, hey, can we unpack this sleep challenge that you're having right now a little bit more, right? Remembering how you use language with your clients. Can we unpack this sleep score that you've given yourself? And then have a little conversation. Maybe they say, hey, my stress is a level 10 stress. It's crazy stress. And a 1 out of 10, 10 being the worst stress. And so maybe you want to take 3 to 5 minutes and map their daily stress. Like, hey, what kind of stress levels do you have when you wake up? Does the coffee hit you when your stress rises, or it feels like energy? Where's your energy at waxing and waning? Where are your stress levels at work? Where are they when you come home? How do you crash out at night? Or are you unwinding yourself in a good way into the evening? Just mapping their stress plan. So this intake is so important, and there's so many different ways you can slice it. And obviously you have to fit it into your time constraints, but you can't skip the intake process. And it is a way for people to feel seen and heard. Your clients will feel seen and heard. And again, this is how they will remember how you make them feel. So have a good intake form. That's number 2, right? So number 1, set the setting. Number 2, do a great intake. Have a form. Make it easy. Make it evergreen. Put it online. I use JotForm. You could use Google Forms. Like, have an intake form. Have it be thoughtful. Make it once, do it and then just use it. Maybe mapping their daily stress plan. And then number three on this list of incredible strategies for client success is, what are you doing with breathwork? And I recognize that you might think, oh, well, Kristen runs this program, Sherpa Breath and Cold, so she's like a breathwork teacher, and that's going to be her primary focus. But let me tell you that I have been coaching for years and years, 20 plus years, even more if you include like my yoga teaching and coaching and teaching people how to do hands-on assists in yoga class. Right? I ran programs to do that so many years ago. And I'm a nutrition specialist. I work in so many different containers across the health optimization landscape. And more recently, in the more recent, 3-4 years, I've been focusing heavily on breath and cold. And the reason is because these are pivotal. They are the ways that I see clients over all the years I've worked with them create and adhere to the other parts of the program I put together. And without these tools, they adhere less. And there's no gap in my thinking and understanding that these tools really make the difference. So how are you weaving in breathwork? And it doesn't have to be some 45-minute breathwork journey. If you want to get trained on that, come to the Sherpa Breath and Cold instructor trainings. It's 2 days a weekend. They happen all over the place all year long. You can find them on the certification page. It's a beautiful opportunity for you to be able to learn more about breathwork, performance breathing, cold exposure, cold coaching, all of that. But the reality is that breath can be 3 to 5 minutes before you work out with someone, before you have someone in your clinic, before you put someone on the table, or during a session. If you're doing body work or anything like that, you can have them breathe with you. You can co-regulate with them, right? You can align your breathing patterns to theirs and then slowly adjust them. You can instruct them with some guidance and some thoughtful cueing, right? Really being sure of the language that you're using to get them to inhale and exhale and expand in specific areas. But I see breathwork as the lowest hanging fruit on the map, right? On the pyramid of health. It's like, how are we breathing? And this is something that we see from a time constraint standpoint. If we're going to work in some kind of breathwork, some kind of performance breathing, some kind of understanding of the way that the client is breathing mechanics, if that's what it needs to be. I see this in the universities and with the athletes that I work with. The coaches and the directors of the athletic directors and the strength and conditioning coaches are like, we're not going to change our program drastically for you. We're running a tight ship here, coaching a sport. The swim team we worked with in Ohio was like, you get 5 minutes. And by that, we mean 4 minutes and 59 seconds, 5 minutes. You hit 5 minutes and 1 second, we're moving on. So you get 5 minutes at every practice. Right? Maybe a little bit more, maybe at the strength and conditioning dry land trainings. So I'm talking about simple, effective tools you can utilize to weave breathwork in. And that's a part included in number 2, this assessment. In their intake form, you can ask them a question about breathing if you want, right? Whether it's verbal or written. And understanding that context is king for what they're doing for their sport, and having a few simple tools. Again, in that playbook, I have a list of a couple ways you can assess and tools you can use to kind of get an understanding and things you can apply to people to make the shift with their breathing, right? And sometimes you're going to have a little bit longer. Maybe you have the opportunity and the beautiful ability to have one whole session around breathing. So learn about breathing from whoever you need to, or you come to me and I'll teach you about breathing so you can weave breathwork into your coaching practice. Planning around the goals of the person. So you're going to talk about breathing or look at someone's breathing in a way that is related to what's going on with them. Do they have high anxiety? Do they have sleep apnea? Are they playing a specific sport and they have to have specific breathing cues for when they swing the bat or lift the barbell or what have you? Right? Are they in a heightened state of stress because they're a high-powered executive and they're on their computer and they're holding their breath, or their shoulders are cranked up by their ears, or they're just understanding how their breathing biomechanics are and how you can give them some tools in the breath landscape to down-regulate them, to calm their bodies. And the object of the game is to not be calm 24/7. Let's also be clear with that, right? The object of the game is to have the ability to have a resilient and highly navigable nervous system. Meaning, if I need focus, clarity, upregulation, if I'm saving the baby from the rushing truck that's coming down the street, you need to get yourself upregulated. You need to get into fight mode and save the baby. And then immediately after, you need to, drop and roll and have the baby all protected and land on the curb on the other side of the street and be able to sit down and coo with the baby, calm the baby's state, relate with the baby, co-regulate and calm yourself and your system, to be in the state of down-regulation so you can be connected, for the example of the baby in the truck that I always use. So understanding context, understanding how you can navigate the nervous system, and really by looking at how people are breathing, understanding how you can work in a few key breathwork tools. I'll give an example. Example at the end of a workout. Let's say you're a personal trainer. Let's say you're doing something in the fitness. You're running a class, even group fitness. The most important part of that class is to set people up for recovery, but right before they walk out the door, which means you want 3 minutes, legs up the wall, laying on the mat. It's like the yogis got it right in Shavasana, quite frankly, to have that 3 minutes minimum, or just, that's all you need, 3 to 5 minutes if you're gifted enough with being able to have 5 minutes of down regulation at the end of a class or one-on-one session. And putting that person's legs up the wall or having them lay down on the mat or a block or a bolster or whatever under them, and then get them to close their mouth, nasal breathe, 2x breathing style. It's the simplest tool ever. And 2x breathing style just means whatever count you breathe in or they breathe in, you double the count of the exhale out. So closing the mouth, touching the lips together, softening the face, breathing in and out through the nose only. You're going to inhale for a count of 3. Exhale for a count of 6. Inhale for 3, exhale for 6. Do that for 2 to 3 minutes. High five. Great job today. People have now down-regulated. Their body has set themselves up. You have told their nervous system you are ready to recover beginning now. Instead of them running out of your office, running out of the clinic, running out of the center, running out of your service, running out of your gym and jumping in the car, slamming a protein shake if they're lucky, running into the rest of the day, kids, school, work, travel, whatever it might be, throwing themselves into the bed at night, and the first time their body gets a chance to actually recover is when they hit the pillow. You're only as fit as what you can recover from. Let's be successfully setting our clients up for recovery and success. So weaving in breathwork, right? Let's go back. Number 1 is customer service. Set the setting. Number 2, create a masterful intake form. Number 3, what is your way that you weave in breathwork or understanding of how they're breathing contextually, what their breathing biomechanics are? Come play with us at Sherpa Breath and Cold. We'll teach you all the things if there's gaps. And if you have things you want to share that I'm not talking about on this podcast, please write me. I answer all the DMs and all the inquiries into the podcast page. Number 4 in the list of masterful tools and strategies for client success for you health coaches out there is proper assessment. So this is a big, I teased this all up to number 4, proper assessment of the person. So this includes active listening, observing blind spots, right? People will tell you their stories. And sometimes, these stories, we're selling ourselves short quite often. We got a lot of negative self-talk. So if you actively listen, a good coach asks good questions more than they just spout what to do at their clients. Ask good questions and actively listening, observing blind spots that come up. Now that could be in the physical training world that you're doing, and it could be in the stories that they tell themselves, right? And you may decide you don't want to share what you think some of their blind spots are at the onset, because you want to learn about that person, or maybe you don't want to offend them or something like that. But it's our job as a coach to hold up a mirror, in the kindest, of course, way possible, and show people where they are not giving themselves enough credit or needing to do a little bit more work, because we will avoid the work that is really challenging. We don't want to get uncomfortable. And the point is to get a little uncomfortable so we can stretch and grow. And our job as coaches is to get our clients to stretch and grow. So proper assessment is number 4. Active listening, observing blind spots, doing the assessment everywhere. You're going to have your own, you're listening to this and you have a specialization, you have a high level of expertise in something. And that's emotional recovery or life coaching or body work, or, you're a rolfer, or you're a fitness coach, you're doing IVs and health optimization, whatever it might be. What's the assessment? What's the actual assessment? And by assessment, I don't mean intake. I mean, how are you assessing them? Are you assessing and looking at how they breathe? I always have people come in who are new clients, and I'm like, either watching them breathe for a while when they don't know I'm watching, and then laying them down for a few minutes and saying, I'm going to put in a little music, and I'm just going to watch how your body works in space and breathes. Don't let it be weird. Little humor goes a long way. And if they're going to lift a barbell or weights, they're going to get on your table, just watching them breathe as they settle in, or they do the doing of the sport that they're doing, or the context that there is their own. How are they breathing? How are they standing? What's their posture look like? How's their range of motion? Right? You're going to have other assessments that you use, like perhaps you have a food journal for someone you're nutrition coaching. If you think that breath work being woven into your nutrition programming is obsolete and not important, you got another thing coming. You can go back and watch the 11 years ago, they was dropped a TEDx talk saying, when you lose weight, where does it go? Surprise answer, right? 80% of it is being exhaled. So if you think that breathing doesn't have anything to do with your cells optimizing and the way that we lose weight being ever so important, you got to dive into this. So how do you do a proper assessment? With bands and balls and range of motion. Maybe it's like a food journal for you nutritionists out there. Physical training, you're doing a body composition test, or you're doing a max lift test. I mean, there's so many different ways, right? Understanding people's stress level when you're working on them physically, with trying to get them to relax, what kind of music soothes them, settles them in the most. Just assessing them by looking at their bodies, by reading the landscape and getting real familiar with DJing their nervous system. And that's what I always say at the Sherpa Breath and Cold events that we do in programming. It's like we are actually just DJing people's nervous system, including with ours. It's not just with words, our hands, our cueing. It's our energy, right? We have this energy circumference of 4 feet around us that our energy can touch other people's energy. So how are we assessing them? How are we making them feel able to be assessed? And how we can support the container we're creating in our specific arena. And I cover a lot of this in the training weekends that I do, and I could make this like a 4-hour podcast, but I'm going to try not to. So proper assessment, what are the tools that you are using to assess them, and how are you keeping track of that, right? We can't manage what we can't measure. So measure something, and then let's see where we can take it. Number 5, this is last but definitely not least. Number 5, strategy for client success. How can you weave in cold exposure? You probably knew that I was going to go here, and if you didn't, I'm not going to never not go here. Because cold exposure and utilizing ice baths, utilizing cold showers, and if you have sensitive clients, just starting by putting their wrists in, or cold plunging their face, just face only in the morning, set them up for some success. Make a video to show them how to do it. Do it with them the first time, Importantly, knowing the contraindications here, okay? There's some people that have medical conditions that you don't want to be doing crazy breath work, of course, but mostly you don't want to be putting people in an ice bath up to their neck if they have some medical conditions like diabetes, or they have cardiovascular issues or heart issues or pacemaker. Like, just know what the contraindications are. That's very, very important. And if there are none, and it's safe to do so, then blend cold exposure into your practice. And perhaps you're working with someone where it's not convenient, or you don't have an ice plunge, or you don't have the ability to do that. Then give them homework to do it, or include in your first session, hey, this session is going to be longer and we're going to do some form of cold exposure, right? I've been known to throw ice tubs and 300 pounds of ice and stuff in the back of my Jeep and extend, my first couple of sessions with clients to make them get into some more cold, or to take clients specifically, meet them at a cold exposure place, or my home. And my home studio had a plunge for a very long time, and it will again in a few more months. Moving into a new building that has a cold plunge, which has 2, and a sauna and a steam room. And it's beautiful to be able to work with clients in that way. There's a gym there. There's all the things I can work with them on, and there's cold. So how do we weave cold into this, right? Why aren't you weaving this in? That's my question, right? Could we imagine that this could be supportive as a tool for body recomposition, mood boosting, brown adipose tissue? Mood boosting is the big one for me, but better sleep, better interrelation with people, better stress management, all of it. Why aren't you weaving this in? Some form of cold exposure. And making the ask. If the client is not going to do it, okay, but make the ask. Or create a program where you're like 8 weeks of training, or you're going to sign up for a package deal and it's going to include, we do at least one cold plunge where I go with you and I'm coaching you through it, or sitting with you, or we both plunge, or whatever you decide to do. And it could be a wild river nearby, right? I don't know, wherever you live. You can just know what you're doing when it goes to wild swimming or outdoor plunging, and never do it alone, and all the things. Or we talk about this a lot at the level 2. We have a Sherpa breath and cold level 2 training called In the Wild. It's a retreat style 5-day thing. It's absolutely incredible. And we do ice hole plunging and safe in nature, cold exposure and sauna and all these different breathwork things, and ancestral eating. And it's an incredible opportunity. What's the link? sherpabreathandcold.com/In the Wild retreat. It's amazing. February 2025. Come rock out with us. We'd love to have you. I have an incredible, I can't even go into it, Nick Gibson. She did a podcast with me. She's a keynote speaker, and we're all getting wearables and tech that will navigate and manage and machine learn us over the course of the week for our moods and our emotional states. It's wild. More to come on the Nick Gibson podcast. You can go back to that episode and look. So this is the number 5 way to manage client success. What are the benefits? Recovery. I talked earlier about what you only as fit as what you can recover from. So start your recovery. You get a stimulus in the cold, but when you get out, you get a parasympathetic rebound. Better sleep, better recovery. Signaling to your body, parasympathetic rebound, rest, digest, better recovery. Mood boosting, mindset, athletes out there. This simulates the stress of a competition. So let's get used to it, right? We get better at the game of life. We get better at the game of competition. High-powered executives that can't turn off, put them in an ice bath. Put them in cold showers every morning, right? Start them in cold showers. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, cold shower, make it warm first. Get all your washing done, clean your body off, and then turn it cold for the last 2 minutes. Those executives will start to learn how to perform better under pressure. They will also know they'll be downregulated after they get out of the shower, and they're like, woof, that was amazing. They'll feel exhilarating. They'll go into the office. They'll be like gangbusters. It will change the way their day goes. Why are you not working cold exposure in? You could be a life coach, coaching executives, a business coach, coaching Why are you not weaving these tools in? Breathing and cold, they're such baseline tools that can absolutely change so much of what we do day to day. And you can titrate the cold. Again, you're going to have what's the client's ability, what's their level of dis-ease or, disassociation if they have a lot of things going on in their life with stress or unpacking other things. I work with an EMDR therapist now, and I just love her. Shout out to Colleen. She's so amazing. If you want a good EMDR therapist, write me. I'll tell you her information. And in the sessions, we've worked together a lot. She knows what I do, and she just recently said to me, hey, can you come on and do a breathwork session with one of my clients to feel it out? I have an in-person session. So I was happy to, right? And that's a woman who is normally just behind a computer screen. And we did it through Zoom, right? This is like part of what I do in the mentorship program. As a mentorship, this is the best offering on the planet, honestly, if you want to be a top leader in working in the space as a health coach by weaving in breath and cold. There's a 9-month mentorship. And the 9-month mentorship comes at an investment of time, energy, money. And you have private calls with me and the team, and we have a cohort, and it's incredible. And it includes the retreat in February. And that retreat is a $5,000 value. So you get into the mentorship, you get the retreat in February. That's cutting ice holes and learning wilderness. You get a level 1 training. You get all your certifications, all your accreditation. 9 months with me. I mean, you'll be so excited to have 9 months with me. But I take all of my education and all of my training and all of the programs and all of the certifications that I have, and I've rolled them into and I've aggregated the data. And we learn in the 9 months, we learn the first 3 months are master yourself, then master the one-on-one client, which is like what we're doing here. And then we master the group experience, retreat, Zoom experience. We dive in, and then we customize a lot of the work we do in the one-on-one to what your business is. So we're growing your business, talking about marketing, talking about all of that. It's a mentorship that I always wanted that I couldn't find. I've created it now that I've been through all the trials and tribulations so that you can fail faster, Kristen, and then everybody gets to learn more, right? We stretch and we grow together. So many beautiful offerings on the table from Sherpa Breath and Cold, right? So titrating your cold to client's ability and really understanding the contraindications and understanding the benefits there. And that is number 5. So just to review those one last time, 5 strategies for client success by mastering the art of health coaching. Stand out from the crowd with setting the setting. How do you set up your space? How do you make people feel? Number 2, have a remarkable way to intake people. Intake form, whether that be verbal in the moment, presence, taking notes, whether that be something that you set up evergreen, have both, have a few offerings to make it easy on yourself. Good intake form. Actively listen. Map their nervous system tone. If they have a lot of stress, see what's going on. Make them be seen and heard so that that intake form becomes a powerful tool for you to be able to program and plan them over the multiple times they come back to you because you're so amazing. Weaving in breathwork is number 3. What is the way that you weave in breathing, biomechanics, breathwork, performance breathing, any of it? It is absolutely within their context. You can create protocols and programs. Even just the example I gave you with that down regulation breathing at the end of a session. Breath is elemental to the success of the client, and you can make fast gains with it. Proper assessment. Number 4, proper assessment. Active listening, observing blind spots. How do you assess their body? What tools are you using? What metrics are you using? Can you pick a couple data points so that you can track over time? Like when we worked with the swim team at the universities, we were like, great, they already have a vert jump, and a grip strength test. So a vert jump and a grip strength test already exist. Every week they're doing that, week over week over week, all season long, preseason, etc. So what can we work in? We picked a protocol. We're like, great, we're going to layer in this breathing test, and they're going to do it every week, and we can manage and track the data so we know who's improving. And then the rate of improvement that we saw was insane. People who improved in the breathing scores from 5 to 20% had an increase in overall performance season over season by 66%. That means 66% better performance, faster times, all of it. Right? And the people who had an improvement in that breathing test week over the course of the season, over the course of the weekly breathing test that we worked in, the people who had a 20 to 40% improvement had a 94%. I mean, it's like laughable how good it is. A 94% rate of improvement season over season. That means that's how many 94% of the team improved their times. I mean, come on. It's breath work, and it is just game changing. Proper assessment. What tools are you using? How are you managing their breath? What data are you putting out there? Because you can't manage what you don't measure. Use a breathing test, or use, whatever assessment tools you have so that you can pick 1 or 2 key items aligned with their goals and show them how they're winning. Show them how you are helping them win. You are helping them heal, right? And the last one is cold exposure. Weaving this in for so many reasons. Stress inoculation, managing and understanding what it feels like to be in the competition so that there's practicing the actual doing, recovery, better sleep, better mindset, better mood. I want to advocate for people who are navigating mental health challenges, anxiety, depression, etc. It's so important. So all of these are the 5 strategies for client success within the landscape. I've given you a whole bunch of my practical application and experience in these tools. These are things that are going to set you apart from all the other coaches out there. And if you really want to take a deeper dive with us, there's so many ways that you can do it. And I just shout out Sherpa Breath and Cold because there's a team of master trainers and myself working to really change the game and the way that these tools are applied, and to make it super approachable and accessible for you to use these tools. I am doing, if you hear this podcast before December 2nd, I'm doing an hour free from December 2nd to the 10th. We are doing 9 days in a row, an hour every day. It's totally free. You can get on to sherpabreathandcold.com/playbook, sherpabreathandcold.com/playbook. Sign up for the playbook, and then you can get into that live launch for free. And you can come and listen. You can come ask any questions. You can come and, check out, bring your bullshit meter. You'll see. I bring on special guests of people I've worked with. We talk about the ways that they've improved using breath and cold and other things in the health optimization landscape. And it's just a really vibrant, beautiful time to really talk about this work with other people who want to talk about this work. And either way, you can come or not come, but also like downloading the playbook is going to give you a bunch of tools, including audio tracks that are going to really help support, right? So we're going to go to, whoa, I got a dog here. We're really going to go to the place where we lean in on those live classes, an hour a day. And I have certification weekends that are 2 full 8-hour days. It's an intensive 2-day training that's amazing. A level 1 Sherpa breath and cold instructor or facilitator training. We have a level 2 experience that's out in the world called In the Wild that has a recreational and educational track that is February 2025. And if you want to really dive in because you're like, I want to be the most just winning some facilitator and coach of these practices, and I want to be able to understand and learn how they plug into so many other practices, which is honestly the beauty of working with me and the team is we all come from diverse backgrounds, and I have worked in the health landscape for so long, and all of the trainers that work with me at Sherpa Breath and Cold have been coaching at university levels, working with professional athletes, opening franchises, doing all these different things. So many of these trainers and instructors and people who show up for the Sherpa Breath and Cold mentorship and trainers in the crew that we have already have so much experience to share. And we do a lot of that within the mentorship, a lot of that, which again includes that Sherpa Breath and Cold in the Wild training. So it's like quite the deal. And it's like a family. Come and meet your new community, your new family. Come be with us if you're really interested in these practices and you want to get a deeper education and a connection to community, because any of you who are out there in the health coaching landscape, this is the last thing I will say, but it's my heart is filled with the work that you're doing because we all get out there in the world and we give people the tools to heal themselves. And we provide an opportunity for people to maybe shift their mindset and believe in themselves in a deep, deep way. And I also know that as coaches, facilitators, and leaders in the health landscape, we are quite often entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, and it can be isolating. And I have put myself in a place where I call on my community and I lean into community and I work with community and I've created community so we can all be in community and not feel isolated and share these practices and best practices so we can get better faster together. Alone we can go fast sometimes, but together we go far and wide. We cast the net really wide so that you can come in and say, hey, I know you've been working with the teams. How can I go out and pitch these teams? I know, hey, I really want to work in this landscape of health optimization or breath or cold with corporate companies. And I know that you've done that before. You know, one of the women who works with Lena, she helped a franchise really grow in the fitness arena, and she has really good understanding of operating procedures, right? I worked as a director of operations in companies. I owned a fitness studio. Like there's so many of us doing different things. There's many of the instructors that have been through level 1, built their businesses in their home studios, and then shout out to Soul Plunge, even in San Diego, where we're doing our January training. This is 2 people who showed up with minimal experience in breath and cold, went to an Arizona training, flew in for it, learned the tactics and the tools, went and practically applied them for a year, and just opened a beautiful brick and mortar studio in San Diego. Breath, cold, sauna, all of it. An incredible duo of leaders. And we've, this is the crucible where we cultivate leaders. And I want you to be a part of it. And I'm hoping this podcast was helpful. And I hope that you know from the bottom of my toes to the big expansive heart in my chest, I just want to honor the work that you're doing in the world, helping other people grow. I really want to honor you as a coach, as a facilitator, as someone who is tapping in whatever style of coaching you're doing, expanding people's capacity and creating containers where people feel safe enough to thrive. Yeah, so much love for you. Thanks for listening in. There's more Well Power podcast if you want it. And thanks for checking out today's show all around these 5 strategies for client success to master the art of health coaching. Thanks for supporting Sherpa Breath and Cold all these years. Love ya.
Yes, thank you for joining us here on Well Power. You can submit questions, learn more, shop incredible brands, and connect with me at wellpower.life or follow me on social at biohacking.breath.cold. From comfort to courage, friends, we're doing it. Any foul language you hear is not approved by my mother.